So here's a brief video. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 12 chakra system, which is one of the various holistic ways of thinking. So what we're talking about is described in various ancient ways of thinking in using different languages, different terminology, but they're all talking about the same thing. So the chakra system is sort of using like ancient Indian language, and then you can have like some people talk about the MerKaBa, which is sort of an ancient Egyptian way of looking at the same thing, and then you have various other ways in other ancient systems, and they're all talking about the same thing, just in a different language, and I believe that they're all correct. So this is just one way of talking about it. I'll share it with you a little bit about how this works in my own mind. And the purpose of this is just to be able to, instead of compartmentalizing information like we do when we're learning things in school, just disconnected compartments of information that aren't really connected to our experience of reality. This is one way of actually connecting our thoughts, connecting our beliefs to see actually which are the beliefs that make sense to us, which are the beliefs that we want to let go of. And this is just one way of thinking, a holistic way of thinking that can help you to find connections between all of the things in your own reality. So this is a picture here you see on the left is a beautiful picture created by someone who I don't know. So I just found it on the internet and decided to use it. So couldn't figure out who made it. Maybe it's this little shop of auras or whatever. But thank you for that, whoever did that. It's beautiful. So let's talk about it a little bit. You have the Roy G. Biv chakras, which are located within the body. They do extend outside of the body, of course, but the centers are located within the body. And then you have the 8th through the 12th chakras, the centers of which are located actually outside of the physical body. So they are all connected and they all affect one another. And they're all also affected by the chakras below them and the chakras above them, but we're not going to talk about those right now. So we're going to talk about these first 12 chakras and leave it at that for this video. So you have the root chakra, you have the sacral chakra. The root chakra is associated with the color red. Sacral chakra associated with orange. Solar plexus chakra associated with yellow. Heart chakra associated with green. The throat chakra associated with blue, and the brow chakra associated with indigo, and then you have the crown chakra associated with a violet color. So once you get beyond this chakra, it's hard to really visualize a color per se for the chakras that you're talking about. So I'm not even gonna really try. But then you have you have the 8th chakra, which is located below the feet, and that's like your center of gravity. And I like the way that this picture talks about it as the realm of unlimited probability, because that's exactly what it is. It's where you get your information from, where you get your data from. It's where your own access, your body's access to the knowledge that's emanating from the divine feminine aspect of who we are comes through that center. And then you have above the body, you have the Etheric Chakra, which is where our belief systems are located, essentially. And as those are changed, again, that changes our idea of what's possible and what's not possible. Right? This is known as the Causal Body. And I like the way that they talk about it in this picture. Again, they talk about it as the realm of the possible. So that's a beautiful way of describing that 9th chakra, which is just like right above the head. So you can see even in like ancient pictures of people who are enlightened or whatever, and they have this like ball of light above the head, and that's meant to symbolize this etheric chakra, and probably the other three that are associated with that. As they grow, they actually kind of merge and they become one, and they all become part of this what's called the divine gateway chakra, which they're talking about as the 12th chakra. So you have the etheric chakra above there. You have the real self chakra, which expands when your concept of what reality is expands. You have your soul star chakra, which is your spiritual essence. I like the way that they describe it in this picture, in this graphic. So, and then above that, you have the divine gateway chakra, which is where your information from your eternal aspect, from the divine masculine aspect of who we are, emanates from there and helps us to be able to make the proper decisions at the right time. So it helps us to know what is good or bad for us right now based on the information that we're getting from the divine feminine aspect from below. So one without the other, and we can't really make decisions, right? So it's important that as the MerKaBa, as the chakra system is growing, as the light body is growing, to have these two aspects be in balance as much as possible. So like the perfect way of turning up the power that's going through this, or the capacity to channel power that's going through this light body that we call the chakra system, is to slowly turn up the auric chakra below the feet while slowly turning up the divine gateway chakra above the head, or the etheric chakra. Again, they all just kind of merge into one at some point, but when you're slowly turning up each of these chakras, it's like you're slowly turning up one, and then below the feet, you're again twisting, slowly letting more in, and then that allows for more energy to come from above and more energy to come from below. And this will increase the ups and downs of the emotion as the heart gets used to more energy coming through. But when more energy is coming through, there's also more more resistance that one is feeling, because there's more, that energy is pushing against the static that's within the electromagnetism of the field, and that generates heat. That generates that's where we feel pressure. If we have too much of that pressure building up anywhere, too much of that heat, that stagnant energy, too much of that resistance building up anywhere within the field, that can create a problem, an acute problem. So it's important to turn up those frequencies slowly. So some people even use drugs, in order to be able to feel a lot of energy going through the body all at once. And that's why, depending on drugs to turn your chakra system up, it can be very dangerous. So we want to make sure that we're able to maintain high frequencies, and the way we do that is by learning how to detoxify the body and get rid of those stagnant energies, which we could call, like, one of the main sources of these stagnant energies are either belief systems in the chakra above the head that are limiting our ideas of what is possible. It could be also unresolved karma, or emotional trauma that's stored in various places within the body, that's preventing the proper movement of energy through that chakra system. So, for example, we could have stuck energy in the root chakra, which is our center of security or our center of comfort. That's how the graphic describes it. I like that way. And if we have a lot of resistance in this area, that is meaning that there could be a belief system in that area that is causing a contraction. There could be an emotional traumatic memory to do with security. Maybe you were attacked or taken advantage of when you were a kid, or I mean, there could be a lot of reasons for this. Maybe it has something to do with not having a home or not having a place to belong, right? But and then within the various chakra systems, there could be, depending on the individual, blockages of sorts that could create problems. So that's why as the body ages, if we don't take care of these problems, then there's so much resistance that builds up, and it has a tendency to build up wherever the resistance is. So some people will have a really active throat chakra, but their heart chakra may be blocked. Or some people may have a really active brow chakra, and they're really good at seeing different possibilities, but they may have a really underactive sacral chakra, which is preventing them from being able to have enough energy to be able to create, right? So again, this is just a way of connecting all the aspects of our own reality and our own way of thinking so that we can figure out where in our life we have this imbalance in order to be able to progress towards having a greater sense of fulfillment. And that sense of fulfillment is what we get when there's a lot of energy going through the body on a consistent basis. And that's, why the people who are using drugs in order to access these higher states of awareness develop that addiction and develop that need to have that drug within the system, because if they need that drug in order to keep the energy moving through the body, they're depending on that in order to get rid of, or at least make it seem like they've gotten rid of the blockage. But if they don't actually get rid of the blockage, people can even die, right? If you have a big blockage in the heart chakra and you're just pumping a lot of energy through the body, you could have a heart attack, right? So, all right, let's get a little bit into the numerology of the number 12, which is associated with completion. So again, this is the completion of the first octave, which is the beginning of the expansion into the next octaves. The octave above and the octave below, which again, as those octaves above and as the octave below turn on, the main octave also has to undergo even more detoxification in order to be able to stabilize that new level of energy, that new level of conductivity within the body, right? So the number 12 is built up of these two numbers, number 1 and number 2. Number 1 signifying the beginning, or unity consciousness, harmony, where everything is one and how everything is one. The number 2, on the other hand, is sort of the tension of duality, where you have the masculine and you have the feminine. You have the positive and you have the negative, right? And through understanding this tension and this need to have the positive and the negative in order to have power, in order to have polarity, in order for the energy to move from the positive to the negative and move from the negative to the positive, we can understand the necessity for this duality and be okay with it, and then move beyond it to the number 3, which is the number 1 plus 2 is 3. So we have the number 3, which is, again, another number of completion, And from this number 3, you get this concept of triality, which is paradoxically like the understanding unity and duality at the same time and being okay with that paradox being true, right? How everything can be one, but also opposites can exist at the same time, and that's okay. It's actually beneficial, right? So this is where we get like the concept of various holy trinities, right? In Christianity, you have the Holy Trinity. In Hinduism, you have the Holy Trinity. In like every religion, you have some sort of Holy Trinity where it's generally like you have the father aspect above the head, you have the mother aspect below the feet, and then you have the child, which is sort of the body, right? So, or your concept of you, you know, um, our identity, essentially, right? So then we have the next step after 3, which is 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. Again, you get this number 12 coming in, which is the Trinity going in the 4 directions: north, south, east, west. You have in different various magical ways of thinking, you know, there's one way of progressing, which is to go towards the north, or one way of progressing, which is to go towards the south. You know, you have people who are Eastern shamans or Western shamans, like whatever it is that is your way that works for you. This is the direction that works for you. I'm losing thoughts here, but there's a lot coming through. Now, you also have the concept of the 4 elements, and in various ancient ways of thinking, they think about the 4 elements in different terms. So the terms I'll use here are like earth, air, fire, and water. And you do have a 5th element once you start getting into the next number, the number 13. But as far as 12 goes, this is when you sort of mastered those 4 elements, and then you start creating the 5th element. That 5th element being like ether, or moving even more inward to be able to contract and expand at the same time, simultaneously, so that you're not no longer experiencing the world through ups and downs. You kind of detach from the ups and downs, you allow for them to happen, but at the same time, you're able to expand all the time, and you're able to contract all the time. And in doing so, you're able to live your life without creating even more unresolved karma. So this is when we start getting into the Christ consciousness, or the Krishna consciousness, or the Buddha consciousness, or when we've fully integrated our higher selves and we've become this avatar version of ourselves. It's kind of like a, one way of talking about enlightenment, or some, whatever that is. Again, I think that's kind of like the beginning of when we really start living our lives to the fullest. So I think that's kind of talked up, but everybody is capable of reaching that if they're just living life with a full heart, So this number 12 just keeps appearing everywhere, as if you look in religions, right? You have the 12 apostles of Christ. If you look at the body, and you have the 12 body systems, you have the 12 cranial nerves. And so understanding this number 12, the 12 notes in the chromatic scale in music, it's like a mathematical truth in this reality, is this number 12 being the number of completion and the beginning of the next octave, right? So I think that's it for now. I've connected a lot of different thoughts. I hope you got something out of it, and thank you for listening.